There must be a better way, and I want to thank Fletcher Tabuteau for agreeing with me, and I look forward to his future support in a parliament when we do just that.
Mr Speaker.
Call Gillian Genter.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
5-minute call on behalf of the Green Party.
As my colleague Barry Coates said, the Green Party is supporting this bill. Fairly non-controversial, but it will be really important to keep an eye on the impact of these changes, because it's really important that we're constantly monitoring and updating our tax law to ensure that it's achieving the outcomes that we want as a society. And broadly speaking, Part 1 of this bill, which is about the annual rates for 2016-17, that's about the income tax rates, sets the income tax rates. The Green Party really doesn't agree with this. The reality is that under this national government, our tax system has become more regressive. That is, it's less fair. It asks that those people on lower incomes make a disproportionate sacrifice, and those people on very high incomes don't contribute enough to what we need in this society. And it's an unfair system. And I think most New Zealanders want to live in a society that is fair, where we do have access to the critical government services that we need to survive, where we don't have families struggling to make ends meet, where 300,000 children are growing up in poverty, don't have access to the food that they need to learn well at school, or have to live in homes that are cold and damp and moldy and make them sick. And we have an increasing rate of homelessness across the country. And as long as we have this national government who is entirely focused on keeping tax rates low for those who have plenty and reducing government services as a consequence of that, and saying we can't afford the things that really matter to us, then we're not going to turn this around. Things are slowly but surely going to get worse unless there is a change of government. And from a big picture point of view, I think it's very simple. We're posed often with this kind of trade-off, saying, oh, well, you'd like to have health services, you'd like to have greater access to primary care, but who's going to pay for it? We can't really afford it. That's just not true. That framing of the problem is not true. We decide together what's important to us as a society. We figure out what policies and services and infrastructure is needed to make that happen. And then we figure out a fair way to raise the revenue to pay for that. And there are many opportunities, because New Zealand probably has one of the more regressive tax systems in the OECD. And that's one of the reasons our country is not rising in terms of incomes, why we're not, we stay in the middle of the OECD countries. Despite the fact that our GDP growth is supposedly at record highs, people are still struggling. We're not seeing an increase in incomes for people at the bottom. And that's something that we can change if we have a fair tax system and we actually invest in the things that matter to people, like healthcare, education, and housing. And of course, protecting our environment, because we can't afford not to. So, and probably the biggest lacuna in this national government's approach to taxes has been their failure to implement a comprehensive capital gains tax, and that's in a large part why we have the worst house price inflation of any OECD country right now. So that makes it more difficult for the average Kiwi to afford a place to live, particularly in Auckland, but it also means that we haven't raised the revenue that we need to invest in the infrastructure that's necessary for our cities to function and for people to get around. So if we had a capital gains tax, undoubtedly we'd still be seeing house prices rise, because the government isn't building enough houses. We still have a lot of foreign capital coming in, just as many other countries around the world are experiencing, which is disproportionately going into real estate and leading to housing bubbles. And of course, we've got absolutely shocking protection for renters. I mean, virtually no protection for renters. So if the government simply did those four things, implement a capital gains tax, which is only fair, the people who happen to buy a property 10 years ago and are going to make a huge amount of income off the sale of that investment property should pay tax on it, just like teachers and plumbers and everyone else pays tax on their income. It's only fair that you pay tax on the income that you receive as a result of buying a property at a particular time and selling it at a later time. Protect renters, build more houses, and ban non-resident buyers. And then we might actually solve some of our problems.
Pini Henare, 5-minute call, Labour.
Tēnā koe te